Heyo! Welcome. So I'm working on finishing out No Mass Left Behind, which is a achievement to get an Aurelium node within your home instance. So right now, I am going to teleport over to North Watch Waypoint. Now I also want to say, I know that for the framework, there's a level of orchestration going on behind the scenes involving governments, military. We've heard about this from Snowden and a bunch of other people. And I don't know what's, going on with Assange. I know that everything that he did to create Wiki and Wikipedia is not necessarily legal, so he, was put in jail. However, the whole functioning of Wikipedia is genius, and it's still being used today. And, that's pretty much what we use, that functioning within Guild Wars 2. We search whatever, Wiki, Maguma. And, yeah, it'll pop up the Wiki Guild Wars 2 official wiki page and wiki.guildwars2.com. So, I mean, I don't know, what's going on long term with people. It seems like people are just waiting for more entertainment, and that, the days will go by and bad things happen, whatever, as long as, we get some more entertainment is kind of the vibe that it's been going towards, and that's very bothersome to me if that's the case, And, like, I get that, the technology's new, and it's, the quick videos have been a thing over the last 5 years, 10 years, with Instagram and the newness of it, but I'm looking forward to seeing people putting a little bit more dedication into the art and the crafts, as well as helping, the artists to level up, recognizing one another as artists and working also within the social structures to keep things going. And then creating buffer realms for people who don't necessarily have work like, it used to be back in the day. Simply because, you have micros now and technologies kind of simplifying things to a degree of taking people out of the equation. So it's like, well, what are people doing to create a kind and responsible transition with technologies, And I haven't gotten very much answers on that. And the best thing that I can do is continue doing what I'm doing with the place to stand here, and intense going forwards, and just keep communicating about the importance of working together rather than competing, for the spotlight, or competing for jobs, or competing to maintain our jobs. Looking at the future, anyone who's working any type of job should be able to have a hobby stance alongside others to create a unifying presence while working whatever field that we work, within whatever field we work, and then from there, it ideally will grow into something more. I'm looking at it as a buffer, income. People have a buffer income that gives people a little bit more capability to invest time and energy and education for themselves, to learn a bunch of different things and have a lot more experiences in life than working the same job their whole lives. Not to say that there isn't some really amazing professionals who have done that and have become extremely good at what they do. I'm just saying that there's room in our world and experience for more dynamic operations now that we have computers and cell phones and smartphones. So I'm treating it like a hobby mission, looking at it where, military will see this as more important than their position in the military, or, bankers will see this as more important than their position in banking, or politicians will see this as more important than their position in politics. You know, or retail store workers will see this as more important than their position in retail store workers, or trash, you know, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The whole thing is interconnected, and we all have a part to play. And right now, we're just sharing our information and being used by sharing our information and our names on the social platforms as they have them set up for us to rent that space and be used like that. And I'm just fed up with that kind of vibe that's been going on, you know, for the last 40, 50 years since plastic's been introduced. And I'm here to participate with those who want a little bit more of a rich experience and want to start aligning, you know, the youth and the older heads towards, you know, what is the reason that we're here alive on this planet, and what are we doing in the long run as caretakers of it, you know? So I think I need to go right here, so I'm a little bit too far north. Okay, I think down here is where I'm looking. Oh, interesting. It won't let you go up higher than that. This is the ceiling. And it says it's down here. This corner. Insight. I feel like I've already gotten this one though, that's why I'm a little bit weirded out. Here maybe? I feel like I've been up here and I grabbed it, or maybe I missed it. So maybe no mass left behind. Let me double check if I count that right. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14. On an upper perch near where creatures grow big. On an upper perch where creatures grow big. So I think I need to leave the cave and then go up top. I can. Yeah, some of these zones aren't set up for mounts, so you can still kind of see that. And like I don't know if they have a team to come through it. I mean, really, it's about you know, with these bigger games. I mean, they have to be able to run their business, you know. So it's not like they're looking at Guild Wars 2 in the long term. You know, they got their team working on the stuff and the devs for it, but NCSoft, I'm sure, has a bunch of other different projects in the works, and they've been looking at this one, you know, just based on because it's a fantastic MMO compared to a lot of MMOs out there. I mean, there is EverQuest, and there's people who still play EverQuest, and I think that it has a little bit more of a depth to it than EverQuest 2 or World of Warcraft. And then, you know, if you're looking for like a really hardcore MMO, like with depth to it, then there's always Final Fantasy. But I don't necessarily enjoy, like I was looking at how it functions, and it functions too serious for me. Like the elitism isn't my there it is. Okay, I just had to kind of talk and wander. So like, you know, the elitism in an MMO isn't my forte personally. You know, there's elitist qualities in Guild Wars 2. You know, certain things that it's just like if you know it and you do it and you do it right, it just makes a world of difference, and it's hard to explain it, but it really is about the combos and aligning your skill set in a way that is able to be productive in the group, and you can accomplish your goals based on your ability as a player type thing. And that just, you know, comes with knowing certain things. And I'm not saying that I'm, you know, end all be all when it comes to that at all. I did not know it got me there. I'm kind of like in the middle of communicating and trying to find these masks, and I decided to help out here. Just go ahead and hit this info. I think he's dead. I think I'm about to die. Painful. So painful. I like Mob Crush. Mob Crush is cool. They got, you know, every time you start a live, they'll send a little rocket ship to the moon. No, they'll just send you a little rocket ship in chat. You know, it's like, you're live, take off, go. So I use Mob Crush, and you know, I don't listen to, you know, I've spent so many years researching stuff, and I've realized that people will tell you anything just to get attention, but really just have fun. If you're gonna live stream, have fun. If you're gonna network, have fun. You know, I'm all about working with one another and making it work. I'd like to see a lot of people succeed than just a few. I've seen a lot of shady business, you know, dealings because of the way people communicate and the way that they pretty much set up in the initial stance. It really comes down to your initial stance on what you're here to do online with computers. You know, and some people don't play video games, so they have a completely different motive of what they're here to do with computers than someone who you know, plays video games online. And then you have all your family and friends in between, and it's just, it's too much for anyone to really have to, like, it's too much for anyone to, you know, deal with if they don't have the right defenses and the right perceptions of what's going on around them in the digital realms here. Excuse me. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is the next match location. I picked up that one. So I'm really looking to finish this. I just need 5 more here. Objectives 20 of 21. So I need to find 14. Let me see. I think that was 14. I need 18, 21, and there.
You must prove yourself.
So 18 is
Let me know when
more
you're ready.
woods, wild, okay. Shock Hollow waypoint to get there, and then go from there. So Shock Hollow waypoint is down here, and what I'm looking for is the map. Head west, and then do a little curve. So I'll go ahead. Roller beetle down that way, and I need to take a nice little turn here. It looks like this is the location, so I'll just keep bouncing mushrooms rather than trying to fly up there. See if I can see where it would be. I'm sure there's the way to get there without using the mount, and there's the mask, I see it. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy the mounts a lot. I'm very glad to have my sky scale, and I'm gonna use it as much as I can. Okay, the next thing we are looking for here is No Mask Left Behind, number 21, I believe, because that was 18. So right there more was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. I already got last year's standing, number 24. So Southwatch Creek, look to the east by the top of the Tarrier entrance. So Tarrier. I just want to give a shout out to Theo. I'm going to start doing that from now on. Whenever I feel the urge to shout out to Theo, I'm just going to shout out to Theo. And for those of you that don't know what that means, that's fine. You don't really need to know. It looks like they're setting up, or this group is setting up for the, something is going on. Something is going on. Oh, I know. The it's because there's a bunch of people here or something. So 8 minutes until the event starts. I just got 10 keys there, though. That was worth it. Alright, I'm looking for 21. Being Southwatch Creek, Southwatch Waypoint, go north, east, up the tree with mushroom platforms. From the shrine, north, east. Up the tree. Up the tree with mushrooms. This is the mushrooms right here. Can't believe I've been in this area the whole time and I've never picked up this mask. It's been right here the whole time. There it is, right there. Exalted mask. Okay. Number 22. 25. Technically that's 21 on the list here. So Southwatch Creek, go. Where are we going here? Midway between the 2 points. Okay. I think it's straight. If I just go straight, it's right around here. Like right there on that green ledge. Just sky scale over that way. Sky scale over yonder. There it is. It's off in there. Okay. Tarnished tree top at the Wanderer's waypoint. So the Wanderer's waypoint is up in the north corner. Northwest corner of the map. And I need to head east to Scholar Genora, jump off the ledge and glide northeast to the bottom of the ledge. So,
Commander, this way. Commander, this way.
Fallen Priory Historian.
The dream safeguards your memory.
Priory Seals. What's this for? Just one achievement point. Now I wonder if it leads up to another. It opens up something else. I think I'm missing it. It's hard to get a good view because this map is really weird comparatively. So it looks like we'll take a picture of this map. Okay, this is where... No? Back there. Oh, that's why. My bad. It's down. There it is, it's on the ground. Right there. With all these mushrooms. Ooh, pocket raptors. They get me every time. I'm almost dead. He's not dead. 30 seconds. Oh, 30 seconds for the event. Okay. Just picked up that mask. I need to do 20. I just did 23. Did I miss 22? I think I might have missed 22. 23 or 22. No, I got it. So I just gotta do the last one. I'll do that after the event. 12 seconds before assault. So I'm gonna go ahead and join up for this event real quick. Making moves, getting some keys here. See how well this event goes. Looks like there's some commanders and there's a good amount of people, so. That white line does some crazy damage somehow. long as we can get Wes down. Got stuck. Maybe I can get over to Wes. Oh, no. Can't move. It's like everything is stuck. Getting out of there.
Treasure.
There we go. I got it down. Cool. Woo! Alright. There, so that puts me up to 24 keys, and that's exactly how many keys you need. But I'll go ahead and buy some more keys. So I have some extra. So I'll get 3 rounds. Puts me down to 9. 3. I'm stocking up on some Aurelium finally. I was getting pretty low there, and with this last mask, it's going to allow for an Aurelium node within my home instance, which I should have had this years ago. That's just my idea. So the idea is, like,
Look at this.
you collect different materials and you make different things in the game, and some of the core things you need to make to be helpful and participate on an equal level within this game is your armor. So like whatever class you choose to start out with, and then whatever specialization from there, you're going to want to shape your armor based on that class and specialization. And then you're going to want to choose, you know, whether you're going healing, or you're going defense, or you're going damage, you know, and then there's varied support levels between there. And then, you know, people be playing different classes for world versus player versus you know, player versus environment. And after a while, you kind of get a feel for what you personally would like over something else, you know. And that's the beauty of this game, because I've heard a lot of different people talk about how different classes, and you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, I like this class for PvE, and you know, this class for world versus world, and this class for PvP, you know. And those would be completely different classes than I would choose for those environments. You know, I would choose 3 different classes for those 3 worlds as you know, to start out with or to play with. So, I mean, really the game emphasizes on going with what you feel like, and finding your playstyle with your characters, and you know, going with the flow, getting immersed in the game, and letting the game work for you rather than you working for the game, more or less. And that goes for real life as well, but you know, life isn't a game, and so that's why I put myself on a different, you know, plane of experience or intent with real world dynamics of running business and networking with y'all out there in online space here. But the overall intent has been to crowdfund abundant sustainability. You know, if I'm sustainable within my homestead or my home, and I have goods or services, you know, I might not be 100% sustainable by myself, but if my neighbors are sustainable, you know, whether you're doing hydroponic indoor growing or you're doing outdoor gardens or greenhouses, you know, there's a lot of different ways to go about things, and being a homeowner gives one the luxuries of being able to think, you know, within those realms. You know, if you're renting, it's a little bit different, and there's a lot more, you know, rules of operating or renting a space, you know, because it's not yours to be able to do with what you please. And even to say, you know, that is, you know, that homeowners get the full luxury of being able to do what they please is not necessarily true, because a lot of these, you know, suburbia-based neighborhoods and things like that have their homeowner association there, you know, kind of dictating and organizing what you are or not allowed to do kind of with your property. And even after you know, you've paid off your mortgage or whatever, that's still never really fully your property, because you're still dealing with governmental and state, you know, ordinances and legalities to keep it where it is, you know. So there's, like, you know, the best thing you can do if you're trying to get outside of the system is work within the system and just find a spot outside of, you know, dealing with people within the system as much as possible. And things are kind of heading that way, it seems like, with Amazon and all these shipping services. It's almost like people don't even need to leave their homes, they can just get everything shipped to them. And, you know, that's kind of put a lot of pressure on these businesses and these FedEx, you know, shipping companies, and they do their best to explain it, and they, you know, put a lot of pressure on their workers, which is basically you and me, people like you and me, who aren't necessarily the ones who are creating the actual fine print for the corporate, you know, organization and the hierarchy within, you know. But it's just like, you know, those people who are learning to live their lives based on the choices available to them within the frame that is provided. So you got the frame which is provided, and, you know, companies like Amazon and Facebook and Instagram, which is Facebook, you know, and Google and Windows, and, you know, these are all big names that represent that big frame that allows for virtual processing. It doesn't allow for it, but it's been the foundations of our world and our ethos for many businesses and many changes that have happened, you know, drastically over the last 25 years, you know. So I'm here to do the best I can with what I've been given, based on the things that I've learned, based on, you know, life situations, life experiences, life, you know, learnings. You know, that's some of the best way to learn about, you know, who we are in this universe and where we are and what we are, is by going through the research and development, through exploring different avenues of work, different avenues of you know, different cities, different environments, different people, different, you know, languages, different foods, different ideas, different types of school systems. You know, there's different types of religions or spiritual belief systems. You know, there's a lot of differences in our world. And so no wonder it seems like we're all disconnected. But now that we're sharing in the cloud space, you know, there's a lot of similarities too. You know, it's like there's these mice with the two buttons, and you know, the keyboards with the characters and symbols, and the combinations, you know, allow for communications. And then there's the translation capabilities now, so those combinations translate into other languages, and we're like in a really radical time. It's just a matter of getting one another to see that and putting our fingers and hearts in the right place, in awareness of that. And sometimes it can be really easy just to treat social media and the internet and the web like television, and therefore you treat, you know, our friends and family like paid actors, when in reality we're just friends and family, and we're trying to make sense of the world no different than anyone else here, you know. And so, you know, not being in that drive to be a paid actor or to be, you know,
Look at
part
this.
of that realm,
So pretty.
but just to be family and friends with one another, but to actually not feel like we're being used by the corporations or the rent-a space, you know, but actually rising to meet the challenges of day-to-day living now that we have a bird's eye view, and that there are these computational technocratical changes happening at a very rapid pace. So the best thing that I can do is, you know, represent that I'm in this space and I'm here to align with others who want to represent within this space. And as we go, people may have questions, and you just answer them as you go. And as you build, people will see that you're building, ideally, and then want to participate in building, and then the questions will come as you go. Once somebody has a question and that question is answered, they don't have that question anymore, you know? And that's kind of how MMO players have done it in the past prior to looking things up. Now you can look things up and find most of your answers easy enough without having to have someone help you on that level. But sometimes you need to have the questions. It's good to have a questions. How did you do this? What is that? Oh, well, that's a widget. You have to be able to put an M code for the widget, you know, on the sidebar of your website or whatever, you know. If you don't know any of those terminologies or what it is on an actual site, then you have to learn those things and figure out how to do that, you know. I had to do that myself, you know. I didn't know how to work with a blog until I asked questions and learned how to do it, and learned little things at a time. And it's really not difficult. It's just simple little moves that you learn as you go. No different than how do I, you know, recover a password, or how do I, you know, use Facebook and the depths of the, you know, the programmers and what they've done, you know, and once they programmed it, you know, there's only so many shifting of the visibility of it, but if the function is what it is, it functions, then you don't really have to shift the functioning around. So I don't even know what type of jobs are even available, and most of the AI has been monitoring, you know, at Menlo Park is the word that I've heard. So it's not like you even have moderators anymore that are real people. So I don't know what our world is, other than knowing that there's a lot of partitions, and there's a bird's eye view somewhere where someone has this lens of the scope of it, you know, reaching out, and has the ability, like, you know, in the Titanic, where they have those doors on a submarine, and they can shut the doors and prevent different zones from reaching other zones. That's pretty much what they have with social media and their control with it. And so, like, you know, you know, what can anyone do against, you know, government, military-based operations on that level? You know, that's your government, that's your media. I mean, it's not a decentralized process at all. It's, you know, stemmed from private industry working with governments and the monetary systems to align people's to build it, you know, and in many ways it's been like a tug-of-war, or like a tugboat kind of experience, and a kind of whipping people into building it. And there's also been a lot of people who have lived amazing lives within it because of it, you know, and like full lives, you know, without the warfare beating down on their doors every 10 years or something. You know, our world has had a lot of warfare, and I know that there's people all around the world who are ready to finally create some type of sustainable, abundance-based experience on a global level that actually meets the heart vibe of what we're looking for, that we're losing, and more or less because of the amount of information that's out there hitting us with the technologies, and because of the lies and the information that isn't necessarily true, but it gets you to pay attention enough to buy something. And so when our world gets more boggled down by these kinds of processes, which it's been this way, it's been heading this way, and people have been warning about that more than anything, that, you know, it's okay to have a computer and communicate in these advanced ways, but to make use of it towards, you know, curving away from going, you know, off a cliff and you know, destroying the planet through overconsumption and you know, clogging up the waste cycles because we're buying cheap fashion instead of developing really awesome goods ourselves and creating the fashion ourselves, and doing micro commerce and micro businesses and micro trade skills and micro uh, processes for developing, all types of goods, services, and using the technology to integrate our ability to do this efficiently, and to not be afraid of the older generations who are confused about what's going on, because they are not part of that. They weren't part of the technocratic, a lot of the changes in Silicon Valley and all those, California. A lot of people on the East Coast are completely different headspace than some of the tech heads, but they still use computers and they're still participating with that realm all the less. So where's the center point? Where's the balancing point? Where's the focus and the long view as participating with one another, as brothers and sisters here of the Great Spirit, the Most High God, however you want to coin it. It's I look at the sun as being one way to view Jesus. It's an eternal. The stars are eternal. They're all, that's part of the experience. There's stars all across the universe, and there's always a star to be able to amplify planet to give it life and growth, and we're part of that experience here and now. And so, it's like that beingness and that art of being and the state of being is part of our experience, and yet there is these systems that over time has created a process of renting and ownership and partitioning, and it's gotten to the point where it's kind of was built without the view of the global system at large, and there's a lot of harsh humanity involved in that process. And if you look at like America as being a country, one of the only countries that is into tipping, like 20%, 20% for restaurants, but other countries don't do that, you realize we really are disconnected on a global level and have to find new ways of interacting beyond what we've been doing to be able to make sense and create a sense of peace and balance with the long view in aligning with technologies and marketplaces and travel, traveling beyond just traveling for vacations and tourism, but traveling for meeting the people that we've met online, for exploring a little bit more. We may share blog posts about what we're doing with our land, but we would like to do a little bit more, and having one another become the expert advice and participate in working the land wherever we decide to travel and meet our friends who are out here in the web space, participating with the movement of giving back and receiving, with the intent of investing in new ideas, new technologies, new goods and services to advance for an abundant, sustainable, more fruit trees growing in our local neighborhoods and sharing, and keeping it clean too, maintaining it, having it to where the heart and the youth and the adults are all participating in this new kind of vibe, rather than what it's been, where people are always looking at the cities, or always looking at the news, or looking at the magazines as being what's going to come out next, what's out there in the world. And now that we have technology and everything's right here 24/7 on, all the information, all the magazines, everything, it's right here. As long as you turn your computer on and access it, it's right there. So it's like our perceptions is that I want to know the next thing, or I want go to the next thing, or I want to get the next item. You can offshoot that energy into games like this, and then you can find a balance in the real world, with actually solving a lot of the problems, rather than participating ignorantly in continuing to harm and over. There's simply by playing these games and spending more time looking to level up your characters within a game, you're offsetting the amount of time you'd be looking for a mate to add more people to the planet. Not to say that there isn't a need for people to be here on the planet and that people shouldn't be populating. There is a need for us to continue to populate and have babies and keep living based on dreaming a world that is better than the world that we've been experiencing, better than the news that we've been, introduced to about, facts or even potential fictions, and they're just, pandering or creating, you know, sensationalism to be able to make people do something that they normally wouldn't do, but are doing it based under a state of disillusionment or distress, you know. So it's like our world has a lot of simple. There's a lot of problems and a lot of simple solutions for those problems, and it's just a matter of aligning based on having a heart for it. Somehow I ended up in Lion's Ark, and I just had deja vu. It's pretty crazy. I'm gonna go back to Maguma here and finish out that last map. Then I'm gonna call it a stream and work on some personal stuff here at home. I got a lot of work to do. Just got over a hump, you know. Got the first layerings out of the way. Now I gotta add to it and make it happen. So Ethos Del Terra Sol is a LLC. It's a business. It's an actual business. As part of with the Illinois state, and I've had a really difficult time finding my heart with, you know, finding a willingness to participate, you know, with governments after the things that have happened and my viewpoints on things. I'm all about being a you know, a global citizen, a global government, and participating with one another on a global level for business and market and trade. And I felt really disheartened as an American by some of the, you know, insurance processes and practices that have neglected the just helping the people who are injured. If they, you know, they're there, help them get the help first before you sort out all the insurance stuff, you know. And it's like I've seen people get hurt or have been hurt, and the insurance racket didn't help, you know, one bit type thing. And it's just it's really sad to see that the money and the policies and the procedures outweighs the sensibility of what's the purpose, what's the point of a hospital or having somebody who's a practitioner to you know, care for someone. And so I mean, the institutions can only do so much, because really it gets back to the causality of what people do on a day-to-day basis. You know, the aftercare can only do so much. It really cuts always back to our micro day-to-day cares, and sometimes people do it to themselves through neglecting themselves, and I'm no different, you know, in many ways, of being able to neglect yourself easily because of the amount of information and stuff going on. It's real easy to neglect yourself and put yourself into, you know, spreading yourself too thin with friends or communications or work or this and that. So I'm just saying, you know, do your best out there and find space to have fun with whatever you're doing. You know, no mass left behind. No mass left behind. I'm ready for this whole situation to be gone, like 5 years in the past. It's no longer part of our experience. And like, you know, historically, it is news-wise, there is histories of the leadership organizations issuing, you know, mask ordinance for people to, you know, cover up their faces because of past, you know, pandemic or disease-based outbreaks that have been documented. And I'm not saying whether they were orchestrated or not. I know that there has been a lot of orchestrations of things in our history that would seem like it was set up, you know, naturally, that it has very much unnatural facts behind the scenes, kind of holding up aspects of it. You know, JFK's assassination is a really good one, and you know, it's to throw out there. You know, I'm one of those knowers about the you know, the manhole cover, and that there was an agent down in the manhole cover, and you know, there's been documentation of the trajectory, and there's, you know, scientists who have done the math and the physics and said there's no other possible place that it could have come from other than from the manhole that's right there on the street, you know. So it came from a very close proximity and inside, pretty much from the road. I mean, it happened from the road. He drove by from the road and shot from inside the manhole cover and walked out down the way, because there's these big manhole covers that you can kind of walk up and walk through type thing. So that's been the story for a while, and then there's been a bunch of other types of stories that have popped up and surfaced over the years, and people share all of them, and so it's almost like all of them are true, but really only one is actually true. But then you have the mainstream narrative that's the true, and so we have to accept the true that isn't necessarily true, but otherwise we'll be going up against each other as the government. So we have to find a way to agree with one another as participating, in all these changes. And there's not going to be any governmental, organization or institution or sector that's going to tell you to do this. Hey, we're all going to do this now. The 7 o'clock evening news. Hey guys, so I don't know if you know, but we're going to be doing this now. No way, no, it doesn't work like that. It's based on critical thinking and being at least 18 and old enough to be able to participate with on the monetary, financial level. But yeah, it's basically, once you become of age, you have the ability to start participating more dynamically than what we've been given. And these things are in many ways not new ideas, but because of the technology and the ability to look at our world in a more radically defined way because of the virtual spaces that are available now, it is a really new radical idea that could become something more than it has been, very, very fast, at a very rapid pace. And what I mean here is I'm talking about a renaissance, not a revolution, but like an actual renaissance of artists who actually feel like they belong in our world through our mutual participation in the digital landscape. And so that's why I love like games like Guild Wars 2 or these MMOs, because it's already a representation of artwork that has been sculpted for one another to participate in with avatars and characters and accomplish different achievements and goals together. And you know that these things want to be able to be done without the help of one another as teammates and the developers as teammates. It's not even just us, but it's also looking at the game as being constructed by a huge group of people. This isn't just made by one person who's like, oh, here's my game, play. It's like, no, there's like a huge group of people that's been orchestrating the development of this game for years. And it's that interplay between the developers and that feel of like there's a sense of belonging with the developers that as the players, is part of the experience with this game, and keeping up with the news and hearing, what's going on. And we don't have that necessarily with politics, because a lot of times the businesses and industries aren't a fun game. It's a serious, work, and sometimes there's a lot of painful decisions that have to be made where one person gains and another person loses, and that's politics, and that's life, and that's what, like, they say, well, it's just business, and there's all these different excuses of why it is the way it is. And I'm one of those people who's like, well, show me how with technology we can be able to be better than just, it's just business. How can we be better than what we've been told? How can we be more than what, how can we be better than even the military? How can we be more involved with one another to be able to say we don't even need warfare, clearly, because we're working together? Clearly, we have not reached that point on a global level to say that we are developing advanced environments to meet, more population, to meet, healthy foods, to meet clean water systems, to meet sustainable environmental solutions that are able to sustain life in a comfortable, fun-oriented way. And we've gotten really close. In so many ways, but we've had to do a lot of destroying to get there. And there's this sowing process of finding that interplay where, you know, okay, let's do a little bit less destroying since there's not so much stuff to destroy, to maybe shape in ways to allow for growth to come back in a more radical way. And then also for our minds to realize that this world is wild and there's already a lot of growth still in existence. I mean, there's still a lot of jungle out here. And to not want to like necessarily go out and populate it, but to use the space that we've already worked with to develop more, you know, there's vertical farming and vertical buildings that can be built with, you know, 3D printing in more advanced ways that could be structurally designed to be more durable just based on the geometric math involved in the printing, you know? I mean, it's amazing what our future potentiality is holds for us, and I'm at that age where I'm ready to, you know, dive in. So right now I'm asking, you know, for anyone out there to, you know, give some support through donations on my blog. There's a link there, and that's kind of one way that I'm starting to fundraise to jump in and participate in the building process of making some of these ideas that I've had in my head for years come to life, that I feel would be a good way for us to start actually seeing how we can be part of the solution rather than just complaining about the problems or being part of the problem. It's super important for me. That's why I'm sharing with my heart here, you know, what I'm looking at and what we could be doing day to day now, interweaving here with social media, or just even games, MMOs, and more. Arrowhead Vale, last one. Overlook the northern entrance to Tarir. So the northern entrance, I'm over here. Northern entrance is here. North Gate. This is Tarir, so I'm thinking right about there. I'll double check the main map. These are those funny ones that I think is just, it just shows that, like, even though I've come to this zone, I've just been terrified of the raptors or something. I don't know. I just haven't really explored as much as one would think. Yeah, I haven't explored as much as one would think one would here. Part of the game for 9 years, but I definitely, there were just certain aspects that I didn't necessarily look for. Didn't really go to the edges, just kind of stayed in that center part there. And Heart of Thorns is, I'm just getting, like I said this yesterday, I'm just getting to the point where I'm kind of getting comfortable running around here, but everything just smashes hard here. Everybody always has something to say about this zone. Like, things hit hard here, or they hit really fat. And so it's like being able to know how to sustain yourself and dodge things. It's like even your radius to dodge is a little bit more intense than some zones. Okay, so this is the northern entrance of Tarir Northgate, and I'm looking, I think the Arrowhead Vale's there. It really says it should be right there. I just passed it. Okay, so this is why I never saw it. I thought it would be on the ground here, but it's up somehow in the tree. I guess I can try to find it as if I was not with the mount. Makes me think of Fern Gully sometimes. Maybe that's why I like this game also, is it has that kind of different vibe to it. And, there we go. Number 24. 25. No Mask, Left Behind, completed. Aurelium Node, Double click to consume, activates an auxiliary node in your home instance.
Rare treasure.
There we go. And it is after 7 o'clock. So I am going to teleport my main here to Arborstone, and then I'll switch over to my druid and go from there. I've been mining lately with the druid because the druid has the volatile magic tools, and I've been collecting the volatile magic because you can use volatile magic to buy trophy shipments, and the trophy shipments can be used to get some of your tier 6 goods, you know, like your ancient scale, like your ancient bones and scales, and you know, your blood, like the high quality blood or whatever. I'm working on dragon storm here. And I gotta figure out when that is, because you get 25 every time you do that event, and I'm at like 611, and I need to figure out ways to get some more support marks too, or I could just do it that way. I just need 139 more support marks to be able to get the stone infusion that you can purchase from the vendor here in Iron North. Pretty cool. It'll go good with the toy infusion I got for the druid here, right here. So I was going to go to my home instance first and check out that Aurelian node. So I'll go here to the human home instance in Divinity's Reach. I went south instead of north. Go north. My only ore node that I got so far is Aurelium. Hey, not bad. Seven pieces of Aurelium. Cool. So now I'm gonna go pick up some of the kale I got here. I thought you could open up. Fucking run out.
When I grow up, I'm going to be a brave hero.
This is my home instance. Does it come join Ethos Del Terra Solo? Work with me. I actually have a guild hall or like a guild mansion on Gather Town. So gather.town/EDTS, I think. I might have to double check that. EDTS mansion, I think it is. And you know, I need to add some more stuff to that. I'll be adding a lot of different links and different stuff, organizing all the different pages at various times, you know, as I have the, you know, the insight to do something. I'll get, you know, get on it as soon as I can, based on everything else I got going on. So whatever gets accomplished, and you know, just have faith that everything organizes based on a greater spirit and keep going. Nothing but love. Universal level. That's the universal truth, you know, your belief in the universe being a friendly place or not is what creates that experience. And, I'm all about, you know, everything that has happened, everything that has happened and shall happen based on the will of the Most High God. It's a unifying awareness, you know, and everything that is, has been, and shall be based on the will of the Most High God. You can look at the histories at that point and see, you know, all the things that have happened and get why it's important not to see evil or hear evil or treat evil, you know, to look at the you know, one side of the coin, not the other. You know, that's the whole thing about, you know, don't let your left hand know what the right hand's doing. You know, it's like, look at one side of the coin and not the other. Or, you know, look, you know, vice versa, and it's just like, what's ever really accomplished though by doing it? Just flipping over a coin and wondering if it's good or bad, or, you know, and not actually living the life that it's been gifted to us. You know, there's this level of original blessing over original sin, and that awareness is something that it's messed with a lot of people's lives. I'll tell you that. Those who have this belief in original sin has hurt a lot of people. You know, it's no different than superstition at that point. You know, those people who believe in superstition more or less end up manifesting what they do or don't believe in. And I'm not big on that. You know, I am big on knowing that there is levels of laws of attraction, and that, you know, there's a level of hurt people, and I'm pretty big on, like, you know, causing injury or pains to children is very negative karma on a eternal universal level, you know. And so there's a level of things that have been going on that I don't you know whether to be true or not true, but if it is true, then, you know, there is a level of work on repairing what we've been doing in our ignorance prior to seeing what we're doing with the bird's eye view, and not letting the bird's eye view encroach to a point of treating us as if we're all sinning all the time, and we're stuck in this cage of being in the wrong and being punished for being alive, you know. And that's really something that I see that the institution and these systems like to simplify things and try to do, in a sense of control and organization of all the different, you know, parts that allow for us to be online and to allow for us to run business and do things in a civilized manner in accordance with, you know, our local governance and the laws. But there's levels of even those systems falling short to the amount of pressure and speed that the technological advances are creating. And some, you know, countries and some localities are operating at a more advanced level than some places that are just trying to keep up and maintain their bills, and are feeling like they're being suffocated by their local community, and it's not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to be protecting one another as part of a local community, and helping one another as part of a local community, and and finding out ways we can get involved in one another's lives in a non-obtrusive way to help, you know, give people boosts and improve not just the experiences that people having with their lives and their dreams, but the environments, because you're investing in the youth and as well as the older generations who have put a lot of heart and energy into working and are looking to you know, have that buffer income or have that support to be able to get, you know, a little bit of time off and rest to be able to keep going. Sometimes it's needed, you know, and some of these people have been grinding their lives away for 30-40 years and haven't had much rest, and they're still going, you know, playing this monopoly, you know, modern money mechanics, and are always on the hamster wheel. And the only way to be able to fix that is for us to say, okay, well, we know that we're going to be working, so might as well do little things on the side to stack up change. And so that's what I'm positioned to do. I changed a long time ago, and then I started working to find my input into the commonality here, into the you know, 40-hour work week, and also online networking, and as well as online gaming and having fun with art and making music and more. So thanks y'all for watching this stream tonight. I'll be back. I'll be getting a little bit more organized and streamlined as I go. You know, every day is a new day to make a little bit something more than the days before. So feel free to join the Discord channel and check out my blog. Check out the group that I have listed for the shopping mall business networking idea that I'm promoting. If you'd like to participate in that, I'd love to have you there. And for the guild here in Guild Wars 2 Ethos Del Terra Sol, I'm looking for my initial founding members to get going with some World versus World. Really would like to make this a World versus World guild community, as well as, you know, the ability to do some raids with some of the more end game players who've been playing and know what that's all about. So, alright y'all, thanks for watching. Peace. I appreciate ya. Whoops. Wave. F wiki no mass left behind /wave. Bye.